There's a tackle box sitting in a garage somewhere in Ohio right now. Inside it, wrapped in an old towel, is a reel with a name stamped into the metal. A name that once meant a man could feel a fish on the line before he even saw it ripple the water. That name is Pflueger, and the story behind it involves a fire that nearly ended everything before it began, and a family feud so bitter that a father and his own son ended up running rival factories just blocks apart in the same city. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at an old fishing reel the same way again. Our story begins in Akron, Ohio in 1881. Today, most people associate Akron with rubber and tires. But before Akron became Rubber City, it was a city of canals and small workshops, and that's where a man named Earnest F. Pflueger got his start. Pflueger wasn't a fisherman by trade. He started small, manufacturing odds and ends, including tin rosettes used on horse harnesses. It was practical work, the kind that kept a man fed in 19th century Ohio. But Pflueger had an eye for opportunity, and he noticed something. Fishing tackle at the time was crude. Lures were simple, often handmade, often unreliable. Pflueger believed he could build something better. So he founded the Enterprise Manufacturing Company, right there in Akron, and began making fish hooks and artificial bait. It was a modest beginning. Nobody in 1881 could have predicted that this small operation would grow into one of the largest tackle manufacturers on Earth. The turning point came just 2 years later, in 1883. Pflueger filed a patent that would change fishing forever. It covered the use of phosphorescent paint on artificial lures. Until then, a lure sitting at the bottom of a dark lake at dusk was nearly invisible to fish. Pflueger understood something that most anglers of his time hadn't fully grasped. The biggest, most aggressive fish often feed after the sun goes down, when ordinary lures simply disappear in the water. A lure that glowed, even faintly, gave fishermen an edge nobody else had. That single patent, combined with nearly 50 more inventions that would follow, sent the company into overdrive. National advertisements went out as early as 1883, almost unheard of for a small Ohio manufacturer at the time. By 1887, the company needed a much bigger factory, and they built one. Then, disaster struck. In 1891, that brand new factory burned to the ground. For most companies, that would have been the end of the story. But Pflueger rebuilt. And what rose from the ashes wasn't just bigger, it was a manufacturing powerhouse. At its peak, the Akron Hook Division alone was producing several 100 million fish hooks a year, making it the largest hook manufacturing plant anywhere in the world. Picture that for a moment. Somewhere on the floor of that Akron factory, machines were stamping out hooks by the hundreds of millions, headed for tackle boxes across the entire country. But here's where the story takes a turn that most fishing tackle histories conveniently leave out. Earnest F. Pflueger's son, Earnest A. Pflueger, eventually took the reins of the family business. He had grown up in the trade, and under his leadership, the company expanded far beyond hooks into rods, reels, flies, and full fishing outfits. By all accounts, he was sharp, ambitious, and deeply committed to the sport itself, and that ambition led to conflict. In 1905, there was a falling out between Earnest F. Pflueger and his son. The details are murky, the kind of thing families don't write down for posterity, but the result was unmistakable. Earnest A. Pflueger walked away from his father's Enterprise Manufacturing Company and started his own competing business, the E. A. Pflueger Company, just down the street from the family operation he'd left behind. Imagine that, two Pflueger companies, both making fishing tackle, both carrying the family name, operating practically within shouting distance of each other in the same Ohio city. For nearly a decade, this rivalry simmered. It wasn't until 1913 that the family finally healed the rift and brought the businesses back together. It was in the years following that reconciliation that Pflueger truly hit its stride. In 1916, the company released its first bait casting reel, manufactured right there in Akron. This wasn't just another product. It became a benchmark for the entire reel industry, the kind of reel that fishermen across the country trusted to perform when it mattered. Then, in 1929, came what many collectors and historians consider the single most important reel Pflueger ever made, the Medalist fly reel. It debuted in a full-page advertisement in Field and Stream magazine, and from that point forward, it became, without much argument, the best-selling single-action fly reel of all time. Picture a young man standing in a hardware store sometime in the 1930s or 40s, staring at the display rack, watching a Pflueger Medalist outspin every other reel on the shelf. That image repeated itself in hardware stores and bait shops across America for decades. The Pflueger Akron casting reel, model number 1893, became another staple. Old-timers who fished Ohio's lakes and rivers in the 1940s and 1950s have said that nearly 3 out of every 4 bank fishermen they saw were using that very reel. It wasn't fancy. It was reliable, affordable, and it simply worked, year after year, season after season. By the middle of the 20th century, Pflueger wasn't just a fishing tackle company anymore. It was a fixture of American life. Fathers handed Pflueger reels down to sons. Reels got wrapped in towels and tucked carefully into the top of tackle boxes, treated less like equipment and more like heirlooms. Inside the Akron factory itself, the work was demanding and precise. Reels like the Supreme weren't simple stamped parts thrown together on a line. They were engineered with real attention to detail, featuring an automatic free spool and an adjustable anti-backlash mechanism, with each individual reel serialized as it came off the floor. Workers assembled end plates made from an aluminum core sandwiched between 2 layers of hard rubber, a design feature so distinctive that collectors today can identify a genuine Pflueger reel just by looking at the plating and handle work. Some of the higher-end models were built from solid nickel silver, while the everyday workhorse reels used nickel-plated brass to keep them affordable for the average angler walking into a hardware store. That range, from budget-friendly to showroom quality, meant the Akron plant had to run multiple production standards under one roof, all built by the same hands. But every great manufacturing story in this country seems to reach the same crossroads eventually. And Pflueger's came in 1966, when the company was acquired by Shakespeare, another giant name in the tackle world. At first, not much seemed to change. Pflueger reels kept rolling off the line in Akron, but starting in 1970, something shifted. Production of the beloved Medalist reel began moving overseas, first to Japan, then later to China and Hong Kong. Longtime users noticed the difference almost immediately. The materials felt cheaper. The fit and finish wasn't what it used to be. The reel that had once been the pride of an Ohio factory floor was now being assembled thousands of miles away, and the quality that built the Pflueger name for nearly a century began to fade along with it. The slow drift continued for decades. The company changed hands again and again, eventually becoming part of Pure Fishing, a massive umbrella company that today owns Pflueger alongside brands like Shakespeare, Abu Garcia, Berkeley, and Penn. The factory floor in Akron, where hundreds of millions of hooks were once stamped out every single year, where the Medalist was born, where generations of Ohio workers built their livelihoods around fishing tackle, is no longer part of the story. Pflueger reels today are manufactured overseas. The same machines designed by the same parent company that makes reels for half a dozen other brand names. What's left in Akron is memory. The old factory buildings, repurposed or torn down. A name on a reel that most younger anglers don't realize once meant something deeply tied to a specific Ohio city. A father and son, and one man's idea about glow in the dark paint. But here's the thing about Pflueger reels. They didn't disappear. They're still out there, in tackle boxes and on pegboards in garages all over this country, sitting quietly in the hands of collectors who understand exactly what they're holding. A piece of American manufacturing history, born from a family business in Akron, Ohio, that once made more fish hooks than any other factory on the planet. If this story brought back a memory of your own, maybe a reel your father handed down, or a hardware store display you remember walking past as a kid, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like this one, about the companies and the factories that built America and quietly faded away, make sure you subscribe to the channel. There are a lot more of these stories left to tell.